Welcome to this lecture on literary criticism. In this lecture, I will be introducing you to the concept of literary criticism. You have a number of literary critics in your curriculum, which you will be studying in one of your courses. But before you venture to study about the literary critics and the works written by them and start understanding the concepts given by them, it is very important for you to know what this literary criticism is. The word criticism actually, as we all know, has a very negative understanding or a negative connotation. But this is not so when we are using this phrase, literary criticism. Now, literary criticism is the most essential component which builds your understanding about a text. Now, you might be wondering, what is the need to know about all this? It is important for you to know about literary criticism and the approaches, the literary approaches used by various critics so that you are able to understand, evaluate the work of literature. So basically, literary criticism serves two purposes. These are to analyze, study, and evaluate the literary text and also to formulate journal principles which enable scrutinization of the works of literature. In his very famous work, The Mirror and the Lamp, M.H. Abraham writes that for any reasonably adequate theory, you need to take into account four elements. Now, whatever M.H. Abrahams is writing has again a purpose. Why? Because it is not necessary that a single theory will answer the questions that you have about a literary work. We all know that good literature is complex. Good literature might be simple and appealing, but it has variety as well. So there are multiple perspectives with the help of which you can understand a literary work. So keeping your mind open to and listening to others' point of view is going to enable you to enrich your understanding and is going to give you some insights into the works that are written not only by renowned writers, but also those who were not known so well. Because now we are in the times when we have the convenience, we have all sorts of texts, and we are able to access these literary texts and write about these, whether it is in the form of an article, simple article, or a research paper. And whenever you are writing, mind you, the literary criticism part will always enable you not only to understand the literary text, but will also make you write in a better manner, which is more comprehensible and makes more sense to the reader. So, what is the basic purpose of this literary criticism? The purpose of criticism is to enhance the level of your comprehension. Now, you might say that, okay, after reading the book or a particular poem or a story, you are able to understand it was written in simple English. It was not written in the Chaucerian English, the old medieval English, and therefore you could understand anything that was written in the modern English. But the narratives which are written by the writers do not originate in a vacuum. These narratives emerge from the culture, the society, the political, socio-economic conditions that are prevailing in a nation or anything that is prevailing worldwide. So, to begin with, I will take up M.H. Abraham's 4 important elements that he says, which are very necessary in literary criticism. He says these elements are: number 1, the work, the book, the literary text that you are taking. So it has to be there. Number 2 is the artist, the writer who has written and created something fictional or non-fictional. So also the universe or the nature that is being imitated by the work. Now look, while the first 2 points are very evident and clear, the work and the artist, now the universe and the nature is something, which is not very explicit, and you have to build your understanding about it as you read, as you close read, and as you interpret with the help of all these literary approaches, the critical approaches. Then the audience of the work also plays a major role, in the interpretation of certain works. So in order to understand all these literary approaches, I will put before you a few approaches which might enable you to understand that what exactly is the literary criticism about. So formalism is one of the literary approaches, which evaluates the work on its own terms rather than, relying on the notions, myths about writers' work. So what is primary in this formalistic approach of understanding literature? The text, the work is the first element that M.H. Abraham talks about. So this approach works best when it is applied to either poetry or short fiction. Formalism attempts to discover the meaning by a close reading of the primary source, which is the book, the literary text, the novel, autobiography, or the biography that you're reading, right? And it focuses on form, structure, organization, and the word choice, language, the levels of meaning, the multiple meanings, and considers the work in isolation. It disregards the intent of the author. It doesn't understand, or it doesn't bring into picture the intentions of the author, or the background of the author, or the context in which it was written, or anything else which is outside the work itself. So what is the main focus of this literary approach, which is called the formalistic approach? It is the text. It is the organization. It is the structure. It is the word choice. It's the language. So the work is studied in isolation. It is removed away, distanced from whatever the author's background was or his context was. So this formalistic approach was initiated in England by the publication of Practical Criticism in 1929, which was written by I.A. Richards. American critics like John Crowe Ransom, Robert Penn Warren, and Clement Brooks also adapted the formalistic approach of analyzing literary texts. And it later on, was termed as, in a new form, new criticism. So formalism was something different from the new criticism. The prime focus of formalism was on the text, but now the new criticism varied from formalism because it started taking into account the images, the symbols, and the symbolic meaning. So the traditional formalists, they accused the new critics for lacking some kind of attention that they could actually give to the form of the work, because their concern was just primarily the form of the work. So many works on new criticism include Ransom's New Criticism and Brooks' The Well-Wrought Urn, published in 1941 and 47 respectively. So few critics, while were adhering in those times in the 20s and 40s to the formalistic approach, the new criticism theory, backed more of the play of images and symbolic meaning and significance in addition to other things which were taken into account. And what were those? The form, structure, organization, language, meaning, right? So by now, you know that the formalistic approach focused on the form, and contrary or in progression, I won't say contrary, it is in progression to the formalistic approach was the new critical approach, which tried to take into account all the images, symbols, and tried to decipher the meaning of the context, what the writer was trying to say through all these images and symbols. Then we have the reader response criticism. Now, what is this reader response criticism? This again is also essential for the interpretation of a work because every reader is unique. Why? Because every reader has a different background, has a different level of qualification, education, experiences, moral values, opinions, and tastes. So every book or every reader, we must say rather, interacts with the work in a very unique manner. Every reader tries to analyze the features of the text that shape his or her reading about it. So this approach, which is the reader response critical approach, emphasizes recursive reading and rereading for new interpretations. Many of you who would further be pursuing your PhD will be doing some research. You will hear from your supervisor that you have to read the book not once, twice, thrice, 4 times to attain those kind of interpretations which might be your response. You will also have to review the literature available and all sorts of critical things that have already been written and said about that particular text. So reader response theory was criticized as being very impressionistic and guilty of the affective fallacy. Now, what is this affective fallacy? It means that too much of emotions or your personal things, are influencing your way of reading and interpreting a text. So few critics claim that it is not an intellectual way of acquiring knowledge or gaining insights about some work. So this criticism resulted in an adaptation of another form of a theory, which is again a progression from the formalistic to the new criticism to reader response to the reception theory. Now, what is this reception theory and how is it different? Now, reception theory, if on one hand we have the reader response theory, which says that every reader is unique and every reader will have his or her own way of interpreting and understanding things. The reception theory says that this is something, which is related to the response of the public, the journal reading public rather than an individual reader. So each generation, because of the set of values that they have, because of the experiences that they have, again, because of the educational level that they have, they will have a reading of their own. Therefore, the reader response might be different from the reception response of the public. The reader response is of the individual, whereas the reception theory pertains the response to the response of the general public. I hope by now you already know that the literary approaches could be formalistic, new criticism, and the reader response and the reception response approaches. In addition to the priorly stated responses and approaches, you have the biographical criticism. Now, as the word itself is indicating, what is this biographical criticism? This approach analyzes an author's life with regards to his work. So, it will enhance the understanding of a work by juxtaposing the experiences of the author along with what he has written. When I say he, I also mean she, he or she, the writer. This approach has to be used very carefully. Again, what will happen? Some kind of personal level of perceptions, experiences might play a role in molding or shaping your thoughts or your criticism about a person. For example, Kate Chopin's example is given because she was much of a neglected writer, and not much was studied about. But later, when the feminists came on the scene, she was widely read and widely criticized, and widely her works were known to the people. After the biographical criticism, we should know that if something is related to an author's life, cannot again be happening in isolation, because the author, the writer, is also a part of the society. Therefore, a literary work can never be segregated, can never be severed from the social context in which it was created. So the sociological criticism examines various things, which may include the conditions and production where the schools, the magazines, the publishers, and the trends going on can also be taken into account. So the applicability of a given work of fiction, especially, enables you to understand the dynamics of a given society. There are two sociological theories which are broadly accepted by the readers, and these dominant theories are the feminist criticism and the Marxist criticism. So I hope you must have heard about this, and we will talk about this in the next lecture. Thank you.